We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was produced, the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present. This episode contains discussion of suicide. If this raises any issues for you, support is available through the links and phone numbers in the show notes.
It's 2013 and we're on a family holiday in Thailand with Sam Bloom. Days are spent swimming and relaxing. Sam thinks to herself, it doesn't get much better than this. After a few days, the Blooms decide to head north and check into a new hotel. They excitedly spot a rooftop lookout. Sam leans on a wooden railing, but it has rotted and collapses, causing her to plummet 2 stories. She's rushed to hospital and will spend the coming days undergoing multiple surgeries before being medevaced back home to Sydney. It's an anxious wait at hospital. Sam will never walk again. The next few months are filled with intensive rehab and heartbreaking thoughts. Sam doesn't want to be here anymore. When one day a frail and injured Magpie shows up on the family doorstep. She's black, white and waddles, so Sam's sons name her Penguin. I'm at Middleton and this is Headgame. In this episode, how Penguin saved the world parasurfing champion Sam Bloom. Sam Bloom, welcome to my podcast, Headgame. Do you know what? When I read your story, I recognised it. And when I realised what unfolded from a negative to, I suppose, a positive story, it was quite shocking to me. But can you just take us back to what your family household was like before the incident happened?
Yeah, of course. I've got 3 boys. We live on the northern beaches in Sydney. So we grow up, we spend a lot of time at the beach. We spend a lot of time outdoors. Super active family. Like I'd always take the boys bushwalking or mountain biking and just everything. Our whole life was spent outside and, that was who we were. I had a great life. It was awesome. I absolutely loved my life. And I love, if the boys are riding skateboards, I'd always grab the skateboard and ride a skatey with them. And, and it was funny because we used to go to this BMX track quite a lot. And I'd wait till all the parents had left. And then I'd grab one of their bikes and race them so you can get the highest off the jump. So that was kind of who we were. It was, incredibly active. And it's funny because Cam, my husband, he's a photographer. And ever since we were young, we've loved traveling. And so we wanted to instill our love of travel in the kids. And so it's kind of frustrating because initially we actually wanted to take the kids to Ethiopia and Egypt. That was it, because Cam and I went to Ethiopia 25 years ago and absolutely loved it. So we're like, yeah, let's take the kids there, show them how magical and how amazing the people are. And I can't remember how long beforehand, but there was a lot of unrest in Cairo. So that's why we thought, no, we better not risk it. We don't want to, get injured or hurt in Cairo. So that's why we decided to take them to Thailand. So that was in 2013.
And you tip up there, you're all excited, the kids are excited. What happened when you got to Thailand?
We flew to Phuket, and to be honest, we actually didn't like Phuket. It was just touristy and it was just not our thing. Yeah. So we started to head north. So we ended up about halfway between Phuket and Bangkok, and we found this really cool hotel on the beach in the middle of nowhere. So we spent one night there, and then on our second day, we'd been swimming and we'd actually planned to hire bikes and ride up to a fishing village, which was about 2 kilometres away. And so beforehand, one of the kids, we'd had breakfast and then the boys got a juice, and one of the kids saw like a staircase going up onto this big flat rooftop. And so we thought, we'll just go up there and check out the view, drink our juices before we go riding. And so, we went up the stairs, and I actually don't have any memory of even going up the stairs. And apparently I leant on the railing and it had dry rot, but I didn't realise. So I leant on it, obviously backwards, and fell 6 meters and, broke my back and sustained numerous other injuries. That was our 4th day of our holiday.
4th day of your holiday, everything's going well, the kids are loving it, you're loving it. The children are up there, is that correct? So the children, do they witness you fall 6 meters onto the ground?
Yeah, they saw, well, a couple of them just saw my feet go over. And then they heard the crashing because it was like a metal railing. And then, so, yeah, they all ran down and, yeah, it was horrific. I mean, I obviously knocked myself out. I'd fractured my skull, so I was like bleeding from my head. And, I'd bit through my tongue, so there was blood coming out of my mouth. Yeah, and, yeah, I was just lying there unconscious and gurgling because I had a lot of internal bleeding, like in my lungs and stuff, just from the force of falling. So, yeah, it was horrible because, you know, it's pretty horrific to, like, run down the stairs and then see your mum, like, lying unconscious, bleeding.
Especially when you're going from one extreme to the other, you know, you're having the time of your life, and then that literally gets flipped upside down from having, you know, all smiles and laughing and loving life to life's going to change from this moment onwards.
Yeah, in a split second, everything changed. Yeah, so no, it was terrible. So then Cam rolled me over because I landed on my back, and that's how I hit my head as well. And then he rolled me over and he saw this massive lump on my back. And he started yelling for an ambulance, and yeah, it was horrible. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't remember it, but it must have been, it would have been horrific for the kids in Cam.
Absolutely. What's your, if you don't mind talking about, what's your first memory of realising that you'd been in an accident?
Yeah, no, my first memory was probably 2 days after, and my mum and my sister had come to Thailand to see me. And so at first after the accident, I was taken just to a little regional hospital, and they were trying to stitch up my head and x-ray me, and they're kind of like, yeah, it's not looking good. And so they put us all in an ambulance and drove us another 3 hours up to a private hospital.
And you can't remember any of this?
Man, I don't remember it. No, not one bit. I know I was conscious. Apparently I was saying to Cam, I can't feel my legs, but I don't remember that. And so, yeah, it would have been a couple of days after the accident, and I woke up. I remember seeing my mum and sister there, and I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And then I remember saying to Mum, I want to get up. And because I was strapped to a spinal board, and I must have had this strap over my chest. And I remember saying to Mum, it's hurting my boobs. I want to get up. So, and that's all I remember then. And it's funny because my second memory, I was in theatre, but I didn't know I was in theatre. I had no idea what was going on. And I remember them pulling up my T-shirt, because I had this aqua T-shirt, it was quite a bright T-shirt on. And I remember them pulling it up and they cut it off. And then they stuck like a central line or something in my neck, and that really hurt. And I remember just gripping onto the sheet. And then you just see the mask come down. And yeah, that's my next memory. But I had no idea what was going on.
When did the reality of what the hell is going on, when did that kick in? And did you freak out? And what was going on?
No, actually, that's the weirdest thing. I don't actually think I realised that I couldn't walk. Mate, not till I got home from Thailand.
So they didn't tell you that you were paralysed?
No. Well, initially my main focus was actually on my head, because I had like subdural, extradural hematomas. So I had like the most insane headaches, and that was kind of all I could think about. And to be honest, I remember that the nurses would often come in and just inject, I don't know, some sort of painkiller. Yeah. And I was pretty out of it a lot of the time. And I remember my best friend, she also flew over to Thailand, and yeah, I remember seeing her just bursting into tears. But then, it was just it's so incredible, like how your brain can just erase.
Yeah,
so
purge.
Boom, yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, isn't it? But when did the news hit, and how long were you in Thailand for before you got flown home?
Well, I was in Thailand for about 3 weeks.
You were in Thailand for 3 weeks and no one told you that you were paralysed?
No.
Wow.
I know. And it sounds really weird. Like, thinking back, like, how did I not realise? I do remember. So I was in this big hospital where they operated on me. They flew or they drove, I don't know how he got down there, a neurosurgeon from Bangkok. They brought him down to this town called Hua Hin, which was where I was operated on. And so I was there for 10 days. And then once I was stable enough, they took me in an ambulance up to Bangkok. But I don't know. I figured something must have been pretty wrong because I do remember when I was in Bangkok, I remember saying to Cam, I wish I'd died. So I kind of figured something wasn't right.
And do you remember being in that headspace, Sam? Do you remember being in this sort of negative headspace of I wish I'd dead, I don't want to be here? Did you want to die? Did you think the best way for me? Yeah, you did. Wow.
Yeah, I would rather have been dead. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was just lying there. And yeah, it's funny because I'm pretty sure the doctors in Bangkok told Cam that I wouldn't be able to walk again, but no one told me. And so I guess in my mind, in a weird way, I was probably thinking, that's fine. I'll get flown back to Australia and I'll be fine. I'll stay in hospital for a little bit and then I'll go home and I'll be me again. So once I was stable enough, I remember when I was in Bangkok, they'd always try and sit me up to make sure I wasn't going to pass out on the plane coming back. And then once I didn't pass out, they organised an Australian doctor and a Thai nurse to fly me back home. So, yeah, it was just bizarre. So I didn't actually find out I would never walk again until I got back to Sydney. And then I was met by some ambulance officers at the airport and taken to Royal North Shore Hospital, which is a major teaching hospital in Sydney. And, yeah, taken to the spinal unit. And then the next day I went down for an MRI. And, yeah, I was so scared. I'd never had an MRI before. And I don't know if you've ever had one, but they're horrible. And I just remember lying there and they give you that little button, in case you want to get out or whatever. And I just remember thinking in my head, and I had my eyes closed because I was terrified.
Trying to
and
zone
I'm thinking,
out.
Don't press the button. Yep, just get through this so you don't have to do it again. And so I had the MRI, then went back up to the room. And luckily my mum was there. And then this young doctor just came in and he's like, oh, I've looked at your MRI. I'm like, yes. And then he said, like, on a scale of moderate to severe, your injuries are definitely severe. And I asked him, I'm like, will I ever walk again? And he was so blunt. He just goes, no. And I just remember I was just lying there and I pulled a sheet over my head. I burst into tears and that was it.
Wow.
Like, he could have just given me even like a little glimmer. I mean, obviously you have to tell the truth. I'd really badly damaged my spinal cord, but if he'd just given me a tiny bit of hope.
When he just blasé said to you, no, of course you're never going to walk again, what was your initial thought process?
I used to say, well, Sam died in Thailand and just a shell came back. Oh, wow. Because it was kind of like I'd lost my identity. Before the accident, I'd always go mountain biking and surfing and riding skateboards and running, going to the gym. That was who I was. That was kind of, and playing soccer. I was a striker on a soccer pitch.
Oh, really?
That was me. Yeah, and then to lose
the
everything.
worst outcome, like you said, apart from being dead,
it was my greatest fear.
Wow.
The greatest fear was to lose my mobility. And I was just like, well, that's my life over.
How did you get through it, and who did you use around you to help you to where you are now?
Well, I didn't have a choice. To be honest, though, if I didn't have the kids,
yep,
I don't reckon I'd be here. Wow. Honestly.
And were you going through that on a daily basis?
Oh, mate, yeah. Yeah, but especially when I actually came home from hospital. It was even worse. I just thought about that all the time. But I would never do it because I had the kids and Cam, and I didn't want to put them through even more stress and more horror. So in my head, I was kind of like, well, you have to, just be there for the kids. And, it was so hard. I remember, because I sustained a pressure injury because when I was in Thailand, they left me on a spinal board for 3 days. So I had this massive, this 5 by 6 centimeter hole in my sacrum, which was necrotic. It was disgusting. So I was essentially on my side. Every 2 hours, they'd come and flip me from my left to the right to keep me off the sacrum. And I'd be going down to theatre and, it was just horrible. So I just tried to put on a brave face for the kids. And I don't know.
So it's your children, your 3 boys that kept you alive, that got you through it ultimately.
Literally. Yeah,
Wow.
Literally they have.
how long did the process take from you hitting Australia to you then coming home?
It took about 6 months. Yeah, hospital, then rehab, then I came home. So it's funny because I remember when it was my time to come home and everyone was so excited and I was so nervous.
Why?
Because it's so easy when you're in hospital or rehab, you're not the only one. You're surrounded by everybody else who's in the same situation. So everybody gets it.
Yeah.
And then, you've got the nurses there if you need a hand, if you need help. Yeah, I remember just coming home. That was by far the hardest part.
And did it help you coming home, or did you stoop further into your depression?
Yeah, no, it made it way worse. Because when I came home, because I was the only one in the wheelchair and we overlooked the beach, so I used to just sit here and I'd stare at my favourite surf spot and it would make me so angry. And then I'd look kind of to the west and I could see the national park where I used to go mountain biking all the time. So it was kind of like everything I loved doing was right in my face, but I just couldn't touch it. So yeah, no, and and there was a lot of mum guilt as well. I came home and I couldn't run around after the kids anymore. I couldn't go shopping and I couldn't clean the house or change, like stupid little things. Couldn't change the sheets, do the washing. Yes, just things like that. So that made it so much harder.
Do you think being there and doing that over and over again, do you think that helped you ultimately come out of this, or did it just get worse and worse and worse and worse? Because I can imagine the more you sit there and you watch your favourite surfing spot, you watch the mountain biking, you go, I want to be there, then after time do you go, well, actually now I need to adapt, or was it just getting worse and worse and worse?
I'd say it was probably getting worse and worse.
Worse, oh, okay.
It's funny because when I was in rehab, there was this, he was a sport recreation officer. He was amazing and he knew I liked sport and all that before my accident. So he tried so hard to find me something. He'd take me to wheelchair basketball, to, murder ball.
Murder. Listen, I know it well. Yeah. I love murder ball. I love murder ball, yeah.
Yeah. So he'd take me to all these things and I'd be like, yeah, no. And I remember saying to him, maybe I could kayak. And he was amazing. So he'd organised everything. So I was home for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, I started kayaking. And it was just one day a week and it was like 15 minutes away just on a lake. And that to me was awesome because I was out of the wheelchair, just surrounded by nature, back on the water again. And I obviously I didn't feel like my old self, but it was just had a sense of freedom.
There was a little spark there, right? It was like
a little spark, yes.
Yeah. And how long was that after you got home that you decided to do kayaking?
2 weeks after I got home from rehab. Yeah, that was my first time kayaking. And yeah, it was just awesome. And I was really lucky because I had the most amazing coach. She was just a volunteer and she was just incredible. So we've been, best mates now for 11 years.
Yeah, great. And how did your husband and your children change around you when you came home? Because I can imagine the change being quite bizarre and quite off-putting and offsetting.
It was a bit bizarre. And I did feel, like I said before, there was a lot of guilt. But, the kids were just still the kids. They'd still jump off the roof and, do crazy things, which was unreal. I didn't want them to be frightened of anything. I wanted them to still keep living the way we would have lived, take risks, obviously not too big a risk, but, just be a boy.
Yeah,
just
trip up, get
fun.
up again, dust yourself off and away you go. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, they had to grow up pretty quickly. They had to walk themselves to school and, just do a lot more things on their own. Mm-hmm. I do remember one time, though, Noah, he's our middle kid, and he surfs. And I remember it was the first summer, and he grabbed his surfboard because we lived 2 minutes from the beach. He grabbed his board and he looked at me. He goes, I'm just going for a surf. And he looked at me and goes, oh, I'm so sorry, Mum. I'm like, oh, my God. I'm like, dude, just go down, get an amazing wave, and that will make me happy. It's so much guilt. And I'm like, no, just go and enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Did that help you with your recovery? The kids acting normal, going out, taking risks, not seeing a huge change in their demeanour and how they acted around you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, they treated me like normal. They'd still back me out and, they're amazing. Kids are pretty incredible. I think they're a lot more resilient and tougher than adults.
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. They just got on with it. I mean, I remember sometimes we'd be out shopping and they'd come along to help me, and I'm like, are you embarrassed? Like, I'm in a wheelchair now? They're like, nah, you're just our mum. I was
Yeah,
like, "That's
your
cool."
mum.
Yeah, you're just still your mum. So I was like, yeah, no, they're amazing. There was a few nights, I remember one night, and that really broke my heart. It was like, Ollie, and he's the baby, and he's always been the baby. He's still 18. He's 18 now, and I still call him Bubby. And he was 7, and I had been home from hospital, I can't remember, maybe a few months, and he had gastro. And so he was vomiting and he was yelling out to Cam and not to me. And that broke my heart, because I'm like, mate, that's my job. You know,
Yeah.
I should be the one jumping up out of bed and helping you while you're sick. And yeah, that was just things like that were really, man, I just remember lying in bed and I just had tears like just streaming down my cheeks. And I said to Cam, I hate this. Like, I absolutely hate this. Not being up to even to help your own kids. Mm-hmm. The things like that were tricky, but on the whole, man, the boys just treated me like normal. They were young when I had the accident. Like, Ollie was 7, Noah was 9, and Ribs was 10. They're kind of babies.
And again, like you say, they're so adaptable at that age, aren't they? They're so they're still so innocent as well. And you know, kudos to yourself for not allowing the accident that happened to you and that they witnessed sort of engulf their life of, oh no, don't do that, be careful, this is like, no way. And again, I suppose, like you said, that's what kept you alive as well and kept you active and got you through was actually being there for the kids in the best way that you could be. And I suppose that is a super important way, because talk about molding their mindset, molding their actions, molding who they are as young children, that could have gone completely the other way. So your job was, not only dealing with yourself, but dealing with that as well in order for them to grow up and be the kids that they are now is absolutely a credit to you. So, but talk to me about that moment then. So you're at home. Let's bring Penguin into the equation. I know you've covered this story quite a lot, but just take me back to that day if you can and just talk me through it, because I'm quite fascinated about this. What were you doing? And, I was just imagine you going, what's that?
Yeah, so I'd been home for about 3 months. And so my middle son, Noah, and I went to my mum's. She lives at the next beach. We just went there for lunch. And I wasn't driving at the time, so Mum had to drive us home. And we went to go get in her car. So it was a really windy day. And then Noah just found this little baby magpie that had been blown out of her nest. And she was so tiny. She was maybe a few weeks old. And we thought if we left her there, she would have died. So obviously we picked her up and we took her home, and man, she changed everything for us. I loved it. I mean, she was so vulnerable, and she needed so much care, like feeding every 2 hours. And I think for me, just looking after Penguin kind of gave me my confidence back a bit. It's kind of like I wasn't as useless as I thought I was. I thought I was a pretty shitty mum, to be honest, like not being able to race around and look after the kids like I used to. So it was just great having Penguin there. And, as you can imagine, she was so adorable and she just brought happiness. And it actually took the focus off me. Everyone's focus and energy went to Penguin, and I love that. I didn't like all the attention, like, how are you, how are you feeling and all that. And so they said, no way. Yeah, everything. We put all our energy into Penguin. So it was awesome.
How did that relationship flourish over time?
Oh, I loved it. She was just, because she was on me all the time. She was like on my lap, like especially when she was only little, because she couldn't fly, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then as she got older, she'd always just sitting on my shoulder, on my head. Yeah, we spent all day, every day, like just together. It was just nice. I mean, animals are pretty healing, and they're just nice to talk to.
I love that.
Man, I used to tell her everything. Just everything that was going in my head, I would just tell Penguin, and yeah, it's just lovely. They don't judge you.
So why Penguin? Where did the name come from?
I know, it's weird, isn't it? Well, when we found her, we thought she looked like a baby penguin, because she had like these really big feet and a fluffy grey chest. Yeah. I don't know. We just thought she looked like a penguin, so we called her Penguin.
So she wouldn't leave your side ultimately?
No, she was with me all the time. And it was just lovely. It's just lovely to have that company.
Yeah. Did they give you a sense of purpose?
Yes, I guess she did. Yeah, just, I had to look after her. Mm-hmm. The kids would be at school and then Cam would go to work, so it was just Penguin and I.
Mm. Could you relate to the vulnerability of nurturing her? Because if you didn't have, she wouldn't have made it. Could you relate with Penguin in that way? Without, probably subliminally, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely, because we both had a fall, both got injured, and we both needed looking after, and we're both, like you said, very vulnerable.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool. So I guess we not grew up together as such, but just got better together. Like she started to fly, and I got stronger, and I was kayaking more and going to the gym more, and we were both kind of moving on.
Yeah, I can see the parallels there, and that's a really, really powerful story. And going back to what you said, it just stuck in my head there. Animals are healing, and I suppose you were using Penguin as a healing process.
Definitely. Yeah, because a lot of people would ask me, they're like, oh, do you go and see anybody, like a therapist or anything? I was like, yeah, no. Because I'm pretty stubborn. But in my mind, obviously they work for a lot of people. But in my mind, I'm like, well, they can't fix me because I'm broken. So what's the point? So I guess Penguin was my therapist.
Talk to me about your transition from kayaking. So you take up the kayaking, you're pretty serious, right? You're starting to enter some serious competitions, and you're representing the country. And
represent Australia. Wow. That was really cool. Went to Italy with my coach. I didn't do very well, but that was cool. Yeah, so I was kayaking for a few years, and then I missed out on the Paralympics. So I remember saying to my coach, going, well, what do I do now? Mm-hmm. And then, so it was about 5 years after my accident. And it's so funny. It was I got this letter of this lady, and her son is actually a professional surfer. And it was this like, I always say it was like a random act of kindness. And she wrote me this beautiful letter saying, I know you love surfing. You've grown up surfing. I think you should get back in the ocean. And I was kind of like, okay. So, yeah, I did. I got a surfboard made up, and I went out. And, obviously it's different because I'm lying down now, but yeah, it was just great to get back out.
Adaptive surfboarding. How does that look? Are you sort of in the, as you would paddle out? Are you sort of in that position okay?
Yes. Yeah, I'm on my tummy. A
bit
like bodyboarding.
Yes.
Essentially. But I ride a shortboard, like a normal shortboard. But yeah, like you said, you paddle, and I just don't get up.
yeah, got you.
Still lying down.
So talk me back to that first moment that you got on the board.
Yeah, no, the first time was so much fun. It was up on a few beaches up from where we live. And I went out with Noah, who surfs, my middle son, and also with Tom Carroll. He lives near us, and he's an ex world champion as well, like an able-bodied world champion. So it was just so much fun. And like, I've known Tom since I was a kid, and he's like a grommet. Like, he gets so excited. Like, and he's 60-something now. He's amazing. And so, yeah, I went out with Tom and Noah, and Tommy was pushing me onto the waves. And yeah, it was just the best feeling. It was the best feeling being able to surf, like with Noah and like the kids again. Because that's how I remember before I had my accident. I was like, yep, we'll always travel, and we'll all surf together. And that is how we'll grow up.
Did you feel a sense of freedom again?
Yeah, definitely. And it's just nice being out in the ocean, just, again, surrounded by the water, because that's how I've grown up.
And with the kids.
Spending all our time at the beach. So, no, that was awesome. And so in 2018, I went in my first competition, and it was up the coast, and it was just, I was up against this other guy who, Barney, he was a world champion. And so it was just Barney and I, and it was awesome. I got on the Australian team through that competition. And and that year I went to America to compete and for Australia at the World Championships. And it was amazing. It's so, you feel so proud, like, to represent your country. And we took our 3 kids, which was unreal. And so they got to, as you can imagine, it's a World Championships of adaptive surfers. So there are people with all sorts of disabilities, there's people missing limbs. Like, there's this one guy who we absolutely adore. His name is Jose. He's American, and he was in Afghanistan and stood on an IED, And so he lost his legs and an arm. And, you know, he was kind of similar. After his accident, he was in that terrible headspace like I was, wish he'd died, you know, kind of same, but different. And then he discovered surfing as well. And he's just the most amazing guy. And the boys met him, fell in love with him. And it was just really great. It was great for them to sort of see that all these people have overcome the most amazing, huge challenges in their lives. And, you know, and they can still have fun and compete. And, you know, it's a really great community to be part of.
I love this story because you've gone from this surfing family to getting back on a surfboard. And you're so humble, Sam, because you have won gold at the 2018, 2020 and the 2023 World Power Surfing Championships. And I love it how you just brushed that off. You're like, yeah, I'm just surfing with other people. So you went back to being a surfing champion. Yeah,
no, it's pretty cool. I think the first time I won my first World Championships, that was with the kids there. And I was you know, it sounds weird, but I was kind of so proud of what, like, you know, all the shit we'd been through and all what the kids have had to, you know, they'd seen me at my lowest. And then to sort of say, yeah, it was shitty what has happened, but you can still do amazing things. I think what I've learned is sadness and grief can kind of coexist with happiness, which sounds really weird. But because, I mean, deep down, honestly, I'll always be kind of sad and angry, but I'm still happy. If you know what I mean, I can still have fun. And yeah, it just sounds weird. It's kind of like,
I suppose it's how you use that sadness and grief, but your positive purpose were your kids, and now, you know, just being with your children.
And
that was
competing.
Yeah, and now competing, going back to getting on a surfboard, and, you know, Penguin helping you through the process, being a champion, and then passing on your knowledge as well, and your mindset, which is so important. I think growing, you know, older and wiser. But it's such an important aspect of life to be able to hand over to people.
Yeah, no, it's funny because talking about changing your mindset. Okay, so I'd been competing and I was in this category where I had assistants. They'd push me out and then push me onto a wave. So all I had to do was like ride the wave. And so because I've got quite a bit of like hardware, like rods and screws in my back, I find it really hard to arch up to paddle. And so it was funny. So 2 years ago, I was in Hawaii competing, and 2 days before the competition, they said to me, "Oh, Sam, we're going to reclassify you." I was like, "Why?" And they're like, "Because you're looking stronger." I was like, "Seriously?" I was like, "Mate, nothing's changed." And then so I went in, and they're like, "No, you get no assistance now." And I was like, "Oh my God!" Like 2 days before the comp, I'm like, and I was just like, "Oh my God!" And I'm going to the girls, "But I can't paddle," you know. And she's like, and then I'm like, "Oh,
you're gonna have to."
I got head spins, exactly. And she's like, "Well, you don't have a choice." And then she's like, "Well, maybe don't. You can just do it for recreation." And I'm just like, "Oh my God!" Like in my head, I'm like, "Oh, how embarrassing!" I have to like ring sponsors and go, "Oh, sorry, like, you know, I can't do it anymore." So I just figured, right, I don't have a choice. I was in Waikiki, and I remember that night, I was so nervous. So I'm like, oh my God, how embarrassing if I go out there and don't catch a wave. And then the next day I just figured, well, you know what? Like ever since the accident, all I've wanted to do was to surf on my own. And then I figured I'm up against the world champion anyway from America, so I've got nothing to lose. And yeah, and I just thought, just go out there and do your best and have fun. And it was so funny. The day of the the day when I was meant to compete, I talked to this American mom, and I'm going to the mom. I'm like, Sarah's was my competitor. I'm like, "Sarah's pretty good, isn't she?" And the mom goes, "Oh yeah, she's going to mop the floor with you." I'm just like, oh, like, mate, thanks for the boost of confidence.
That's all I needed. Thank you so much.
I know,
you don't
right?
know what I've been through.
I was like, sweet. And so I went out there just thinking, just go out there and just catch a wave and have fun.
No, you weren't. You were thinking, go out there and kick her ass.
Kind of. But no, but it was so funny because she's got a lot more ability than me. She's out there and she's like paddling around, and I'm just like, kind of just waiting there. And yeah, it was funny. I was lucky, man. I got like 2 good waves and I beat her. So that to me, I don't know. It was just like if you change your mindset and don't look at all the negatives and just kind of flip it and go, shit, like, you know, yeah, this is going to be way more challenging, but you just got to work around it and kind of try and have fun.
Yeah, you certainly done that. You know what? You are the epitome of improvise, adapt and overcome, because, you know, talk about having to improvise and adapt, and you've certainly overcome and going. And it's such a positive story. But also the story has been transformed into a major film.
Oh, how funny. I know. Mate, we had no intention. Well, you know, we had no intention of starting a book, of writing a book to begin with. It just came about. It was kind of quite organic. See, that started out as a joke, like when we first found Penguin, because Cam's a photographer and Cam's taken always a million photos. And the boy's like, oh, Dad, why don't you start an Instagram account? And so we did, and we called it Penguin the Magpie. And then a journalist from Australia saw it. Must have seen the photos, and then he wrote a story on it. It kind of went a bit crazy. And then that's when publishers were calling Cam going, we want to do a book about you guys. Yeah. And we're like, what? And so, yeah. So the book came out, and then, a producer from Australia happened to be best friends with Naomi. And so Emma gave Naomi our book, and yeah, Naomi read it to her kids, and I guess being a mum herself, it really resonated with her. And she's like, I want to produce this and make it into a film and play Sam. I was just like, what?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Pretty crazy, because it's so funny, because we're just us. We're just a normal family, you know. And then, yeah, having a film made about us is pretty wild.
That's cool. Listen, it's not as cool as hell, that is.
Yeah, you know who played Cam was Andrew Lincoln.
Wow. See,
He's so awesome. He's the loveliest guy ever. And he was so funny. It was so funny, mate, because he was here and obviously he's English. And so he was so paranoid about nailing the Aussie accent. And he'd have a dialect coach, and yeah, but he did such a great job. So we're very lucky. I mean, Naomi, she's so lovely, super down to earth. Just an amazing person, and so is Andy. So yeah, we're super fortunate.
And I love that your second book, Heartache and Birdsong. What was it like writing that one? You know, having that being your second book, and having the mindset and the knowledge that you have now.
No, it was good because, well, essentially the first book is in Cam's voice. Mm-hmm. So that was Cam essentially telling our story. So it's mostly, the first book was mostly just about Penguin and I, and me kind of getting into kayaking and kind of finding that purpose. Yeah, and so the second book is kind of more about, well, yeah, in my perspective,
story.
Me telling my own story. Yeah, so it's talking about traveling and, yeah, meeting Cam, and there is one story, and it kind of puts, well, for me, it puts everything into perspective. It was about my friend, and his name was also Ant, and we met in West Africa on an overland expedition, and he was, you know, when you meet someone and you just instantly just become really good mates.
Yeah.
So Ant and I were super close, and the truck was going from West Africa to East Africa, and I'd only paid for the West African bit. And then when I was in Burkina Faso, I had all my money stolen, so I couldn't keep going. So I had to fly back to London. That's cool. And so I was in London for a month, and then I went to Morocco with a friend, then went back to London. And I was in a hostel, and I remember, you know that song by R.E.M., Everybody Hurts?
Yep.
So that was on like Video Hits or something. And I remember looking down, and I saw this, there was a newspaper called TNT, and this heading was Osman killed by grenade attack. And I'm like, what the hell? And I picked it up and I read it, and it was my friend Ant, and he'd been killed in Uganda. So I was just like, no way. So in the book, it's sort of like, obviously it tells his story, but it sort of puts it into perspective, because as much as I hate being paralysed and I hate being stuck in a wheelchair, I am still grateful that I'm alive. And I'm sure that his family and Ant would do anything to have him alive, even if he was in a wheelchair.
Yeah. And that's, you know, the overall factor of, you know, gratitude. It's the small things in life that once you've been through, you know, the mill, and you've been through these experiences, these extreme experiences, you can really, really, you know, understand and take hold of, and be grateful that you're still here taking those breaths.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. I know. And I am, and yeah, like I said, as much as I hate being paralysed, I am grateful. I mean, mate, we still get to live a great life, still get to travel around the world and, get to see the kids grow up into young men. So, yeah,
and those gold medals as well. Wow.
That's right, man.
Let's not forget those bad boys.
I know. I just did 3 competitions this year. So, yeah, right now I'm up the top. So next month, hopefully, I'll become 4-time world champion.
Not hopefully, you will be. Listen, positive mindset. We are the epitome of positivity.
That's right.
You are the epitome of positivity, Sam Bloom. Thank you ever so much. Good luck. Go and get that 4th gold.
Thank you, Ant.
Thank you.
Mate, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining me on Headgame. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our incredible stories. And leave me a review wherever you're listening. I'm Ant Middleton. Catch you again